name is Duane Edwards. I'm a Guyanese social scientist. About 2 years ago, I wrote an academic paper comparing two approaches to social action and social change. The first, inspired by the dreamworld activities of the creative imagination, espoused by Wilson Harris, and the other, the more grounded, engaged approach to social action, championed by Walter Rodney. The paper explored these two approaches to social action and change and posit possibilities for convergence between the two. In the paper, I argued that the Caribbean is trapped within the margins of modernity. Living in such trap, social action is limited to responding to what I refer to as structural immediacies and urgencies that come with living in the margin. The region is always beset by a plethora of issues and social problems begging for our immediate attention. Poverty, brain drain, indebtedness, racism, ethnic conflict and tension, crime, violence, physical abuse, unemployment, exploitation, and political authoritarianism are just a few of these issues that beg for immediate attention. The immediacies of these issues present themselves as social facts that force policymakers to depend on the readily available tools and resources. Invariably, those readily available tools and resources are those developed and made available by developed countries which have been able to move past the confines and constraints of these immediacies. Those countries are usually instrumental in setting the global agenda. Social action in the Caribbean, therefore, are limited to two things. First, for those formally involved in the political system, it is limited to drafting and executing what I refer to as response and reaction policies. And for those not part of the formal political system, their action is limited to the politics of protest. That is, protesting against the apparent inefficient and ineffective ways in which the formal state machinery respond to these immediacies. What then appears as revolutionary action is in reality a maneuvering within what Wilson Harris calls patterns of realism, imposed worldviews, and social formations. It is therefore a radicalism that merely touches the surface of life. Wilson Harris and Walter Rodney present two alternative approaches to social action that would enable actors within the Caribbean sphere to move beyond these immediacies and urgencies that I outlined. My paper references a reputed encounter between Wilson Harris and Walter Rodney, champions of the radical imagination and radical praxis, respectively. This script imagines that encounter using their own words to outline their respective philosophies, as though they are engaged in a debate. Wilson Harris' speech is taken from a lecture he gave in 1992, and Walter Rodney's speech is taken from his very popular book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. The transition from academic paper to theatrical performance has occurred under the guidance and auspices of Moray House Trust, an NGO dedicated to the promotion of Guyanese culture and public discourse. The script is the work of Nicholas Singh, a young Guyanese playwright. Note that the current rendition is an abridgment of a longer script. This abridged version is, however, more slanted towards Harris than Rodney, this being the occasion of the celebration of the birth anniversary of Wilson Harris.
Everyone, we thank you for your participation here today. We trust that everybody here realized that within this performance, if you may, this is a space for participation and an open window to the immeasurable possibilities of the imagination. So, this here performance will take a special form that we can allow every face here to be part of the process of bringing alive what is read in our scripts into a workable, inventive, new world, the world of theater. So, your participation is necessary. But just to clarify, this space here is a space that belongs to everyone, and everybody is welcome. White, black, red, yellow, brown, green, rich, poor, politician, and everybody in between. This is theater. When you're in, you're in. Good? Okay? So we are for the good spot. In this script here, y'all call me the joker, a facilitator. For this performance, I'm going to be helping our class and you also spectators in making sure that this thing and everything for our players move as fluidly as possible with cast and audience. I am in a performance like this one, a neutral arbitrator, a joker in the pack of cards. Round this wide circumference, right here, we will call it the abyss. And in this abyss is where participation becomes active and imagination becomes a character as much as you, the audience, will become characters. This abyss will be our playing area where the audience and character come together, and together we give this performance body and breath. At our respective sides, we have two readers here who will be reading the parts or speeches from Mr. Walter Rodney and from Mr. Wilson Harris. It is from these two schools of thoughts, their approaches, that our world will be created around. You following me? Good, 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 good. So, ladies and gentlemen, can you give these two readers here a round of applause, please? Now, though sketchy, these two men are reputed to have met and engaged in a debate. Rodney is reported to have asked Wilson Harris this pointed question. So, what happens when we stop dreaming? Does the tree we uprooted in our dreams not confront us again with equal or greater obstinacy? Rodney's question was a challenge to Wilson Harris's emphasis on the role of the dreamworld activities in quest for social transformation. Now, you get a sense from Wilson Harris that the man have to stretch his words big, 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 big to convey new dimensions of meaning. Concepts so complex and revolutionary that they can only be partially digested in a single sitting. He ranges far and wide to illustrate new ideas, using case studies from Greek drama, the resurrection of Christ, and even the indigenous belief in Canaima. Now this man was something else. Rodney was a more simple brethren. His speech more down to earth, like a man on the corner going about passionately about life. Simply, Rodney is every man. A seasoned historian and lecturer, he turned his critical gaze on contemporary America and Jamaica to weave a narrative compelling in its clarity and coherence. You could see the budding politician evidence in his cadence of speech. Also woven through and through, like a bridge, are scenes of creative and symbolic interpretations, given purposes from the approaches of both Harris and Rodney. And from you, spectators, y'all give these interpretations its reality. Dialogue and action from scenes may be fictionalized to an extent, but the actuality of these events, their conception from content, are rooted in factual evidence. So, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're gonna start, yeah?
A few weeks ago,
Development in human society is a many-sided process.
I met a German publisher, a man of sensitivity and sensibility, and he told me of an unusual difficulty he faced in his publishing business.
At the level of the individual, it implies increased skill and capacity, greater freedom, creativity, self-discipline, responsibility, and material well-being. What is indisputable is that the achievement of any of those aspects of personal development is very much tied in with the state of society as a whole.
The German man received a manuscript which he and his readers perceived as clinically brilliant and impressive, but it left them with an unhappy and bitter taste in their mouth. The writer had analyzed the state of civilization, the pollution, the devastation, the rising tide of anti-Semitism, the possibility of ethnic and racial conflicts, the division between cultures, famine on one hand, prosperity on the other.
From earliest times, man found it convenient and necessary to come together in groups to hunt and for the sake of survival. The relations which develop within any given social group are crucial to an understanding of the society as a whole.
The German writer had concluded that civilization was subject to a circumscription of values that was propelling it into an abyss. On the surface of my mind, I felt the German writer may have made a logical analysis one could not overturn, unless one could breach his argument in the light of the vision of resources available to the imagination he had not considered in the pattern of his thesis.
Much of human history has been a fight for survival against natural hazards and against real imagined human enemies.
Perhaps within the abyss of which he speaks,
Development is always meant the increase in the ability to guard the independence of the social group and indeed to infringe upon the freedom of others.
there are proportions through and beyond models of discourse, models of traditions we have been conditioned to accept as absolute. Perhaps there's a strangeness, a series of strangers within the body of the self, so to speak, that may offer us a wholly different intuitive penetration of the life of the imagination. Perhaps the abyss so-called secretes unsuspected resources that may alter circumscriptions of fate. May I start somewhere in the ancient world? Antigone by Sophocles. Sophocles, it seems to me, has addressed the blindness of his society in its circumscriptions of ritual habit, its restrictive or restricted vision, in a peculiar and uncertain way.
Things good. I welcome everyone here to the performance, as you may. Time for business commence. Man getting punished for treason, them say. Now listen, a young man once said he challenging me. Go against the state and the structure of power in one's country. Young man, yes. His sub-brains go when they're young and smell power. He said, the beast in me gonna stand for something. He said, forget the art of law. I gonna fight. Now the man stand up in grave death like trout in stew pot. Listen, if as one leader with authority over a nation, if principles are not enforced, anybody could do anything they see apt, isn't it so? When man decides to rebel against the state of his country, the country he belongs to by birth and blood, then this person cannot be considered a brother of mine or yours, correct? Could just hear a pin drop. Wait, man. Y'all never see a black man play crayon before? A man in Guyana pick up himself for overturn the laws of a country. Because he believes in the individual over state and is willing to murder his own kin for some power. Isn't this person, man or woman, a clear enemy to the state? Dangerous to us all to go against laws enforced? Who really running a country here? Who really running a country here? Ha. Scene 1. Ancient Greece, Athens. Members of the audience, Tiresias, oracle in the Greek classic Antigone by Sophocles, was a spiritually sighted man, but physically the old man blind. At once this blind seer comes to persuade me, Creon, new king of ancient Greece, that our titular character's rebellious brother, Polynices, who's displayed dead in the street, by me of course, should get A proper burial. People listen. This little boy father was king, Oedipus name. Now mothers do find him very arousing. Polynesians pick up a hell and want fight the brother as successor. The boy dead now. No, ladies and gentlemen, don't laugh. It's a family tragedy. A disgrace to his country. And everybody vexed now because I don't want to respect this empty enemy on we country's ground. But me for one ain't nobody disrespecting the state or my authority, seeing the ancestors in a single piece. Shower down the crows on the body. Ha! It's Christmas. Tiresias, the blind walk distance and reach this far? Important news.
And only these blind eyes can see it. The wisest of men listen. Spare some time for honesty. Creon, you's like a fragile man, walking upon the sharpest of edges, likely for fall, tumble, and cut himself into pieces and pieces.
A man's skin would grow hearing such things from lips that foretold so many horror.
Son, I went down by my usual sitting, hearing the language of them birds and understanding the meaning. I hear quite unexpectedly among them a terrible shrieking sound, sounds of anguish, hysterical twittering and whistling, a barbaric speech, capable of evil things alone. On the wild beating of wings, I know that these birds that are, them songs, son, could mean one thing. I could well imagine the blood-stained beaks and tripping claws, and this thing can deeply disturb me. At once I went down by my calabash and altar to see what I could have learned from my sacrifice by fire, but not one bun. A stink slime fall from the fat thigh flesh and dropped and bubbled round the ashes. The gallbladder bust open, spilling stinking acid across the meat. This was heaven's sign. I saw this, or I helped to see it. He does see for me with these eyes can. Just how I see things that I see in man sightless too. I understand that you, King Creon, have decreed this commodity that choke in people's altar. The blood of Polynesia's flesh and the unluckiest son of Oedipus, still unburied. Oh, Creon, man committing crime is normal thing. The man who can see we do sees his mistake and wrong, admit to him, put it right. That man proves it's never too late to become wise, to change. And which body them could condemn him? Polynesius is dead. Whenever heaven give out glory for defeating the empty corpse.
A damn fool he look like. Blind man want to tell me he could see things. Woman, see what? Everybody on the count of three, close your eyes, but dear gods, don't tell me y'all seeing things too. Cause it's not a madhouse we there in here today. Is this a city full of fortune tellers now? How in God's name, blind man fi close the eye, sing to the deepest obscure part of his head and say, he's seeing many things? Is imagination the man witnessing? Which part of imagination? Answer. Huh? Blind seeing things and can't see way properly to this abyss? Reality, people. Factual evidence occurring before time is real, not imagination. I is the king here. It's Keon I name. And if I say the body of this Polynesis boy, his stinking corpse remain upon the road unburied, then whose place is to stop the leader of his country from doing such? Call down the fighters. When sleeping dogs get brave for bite man, you just have to show them who is pet and who is owner. Watch and learn this thing.
Deathly sick.
Antigone finally come, ready to defend she blood of decaying flesh against the state's absoluteness. With your head bowing down to this accusation, what you have to say? You admitted to burying your brother's body against my will, Antigone. Are you guilty or not?
Sir, guilty, and I don't pretend otherwise.
Forbidding my laws to bury a traitor to this country, I should kill where your feet plants and bury you with he. Family living rent-free with Hades, your hair still playing big hero to bring more suffering to them. For what?
Is a stand for something. Feminist in principle. It's two blind peas in a pod, but how can one be blind to morality?
Ladies and gentlemen, see, both follies of ours is this. Physically, we know, we see things, we know right or wrong is what. But if Tiresias is blind, then what of the ignorant? What does he see?
Loudmouth only concerned with how wide they could practically open. It's like you're telling it to shut up when it's asked to see a point. So like Tiresias, what of the ignorant? And the fool that think he isn't? Creon, King Orator. I could tell you talk much more than you think.
And you don't forget the pain you bring your family with one stupid decision. For you. For your family. I run a kingdom here, not a damn children's group.
Fighting for human decency is a crime by itself. I respect the living and the dead. Spirit and me done green long. And I prefer not to get them vexed and you too.
To bring this to your family, misery, the flow of tears, is it worth it, Antigone?
If I fight a cause to death, it shows utter commitment. Keep laughing. Keep laughing. Just know, to bury Polynesis, everybody backing me. A whole council.
Prideful I am. Certainly. But you will need a cane to walk these streets, woman.
No amount of pride should encourage wickedness.
The only wickedness is you breaking my law, looking for death. And I can find it for you.
I did break your law. Because it's your law, not the law of God. Justice, a principle material equal of God's. Surely not of kings recognizes no law like you own. A fragile man like you, mortal like me, trying to overturn the ancient morals and human decency? We may not understand where justice might come from, but every one man recognizes its force, and no man's arrogance or power could make me disobey them. Creon! I only hope to suffer the disapproval and punishment of men that dishonor such ancient truths. I can dead, of course, sometime, whenever you're ready for me or not. If death comes sooner. Oh gosh. Life for me one is misery now. And I shall be more than willing to wave goodbye to it. But to leave my mother's son outside in the open, unburied, in debt more than I have lived.
Thank you, players. Keon, we see, though physically sighted, was spiritually blind. Now, how may we plumb or address the nature of vision in such a world filled with blindness? Antigone's father, Oedipus, was blind. All the characters in the play seem to have inherited a cloak over their eyes in which they hold up in varying degrees as the flag of self-righteousness, or conviction, or hubris. Some scholars would call this ontic, or aboriginal tautology. As I reflect on this now, it seems to me that the German writer I met, despite his clinical logic and brilliance, is the victim of ontic tautology. His discourse is circumscribed.
As I said before, although the play fictionalizes a debate between Wilson Harris and Walter Rodney, this shortened version emphasizes Harris's point about the function of the creative imagination. The Greek drama brings into sharp focus the need to see things different from the established codified ways of seeing things dictated by political and social realism. It highlights the tensions between the demands of the state and its insistence on our obedience to rules and regulations, on the one hand, and the humanity of Antigone on the other hand, a humanity which achieves fulfillment by recognizing the humanity of others. It is this willingness to constantly interrogate which is needed in order to break free from the prison of structural immediacies mentioned above, in order for activism to operate in tandem with new and unfettered ways of thinking and acting.